It's more of a question of what can't you do inside of an opportunity zone as opposed to what you can do. And the ones that are not as easy to do are ones that are like highly location based.
My special guest today is Ashley Tison with OZPros. We're going to get into exactly what Ashley and his company do. And this is the Getting the Deal Done podcast. Welcome, Ashley.
Thanks, John. It's an honor and a privilege to be here. Looking forward to talking through some exciting stuff.
Okay. Well, OZPros, OZ stands for Opportunity Zones. So what I'd like you to start with is a little bit about your background, how you got to where you are now, and then define for everybody, and let's just say in layman's terms, what are opportunity zones? And then we'll get into more of the details.
Well, God bless the broken road that led me here today, right? I've got a very wide array of things that I've done in my past. And like, as I look back on it, I'm like, man, like how crazy is it of all these different things that I did? I started out as a big firm lawyer. I worked as a litigator. I did the corporate and securities work, and then started branching into commercial real estate. When the big firm had sufficiently sucked my soul, I went in-house with one of my clients, and it was a commercial real estate developer and tenant in common syndicator. So we were syndicating commercial shopping centers and basically buying them by the gallon and selling them by the scoop to 1031 investors. And we distributed those products through a network of broker dealers and RIAs. And so we had a fairly sophisticated way of being able to distribute real estate products to the financial services industry. And all that came to a screeching halt in 2008 with the commercial real estate collapse. And so I went back to practicing law. I built an M&A firm, right? At the time, like there were still, kind of smaller transactions that were happening. And so we set about bringing Wall Street level sophistication that we had at that firm down to Main Street level business owners. So we helped business owners sell their businesses. Along the way, we built a software platform in order to facilitate doing that and to do it in a more streamlined fashion. I sold that business in 2018 because I saw how much business owners were leaving on the table in taxes. And when I was in the process of growing a succession planning firm, I was at a continuing legal education seminar, and the guy was talking about the Tax Cut and Jobs Act. And he's like, and in the TCJA, they passed this 3 pages of legislation about these things called opportunity zones. And I kind of perked up, and everybody else in the thing was like still asleep. And I ran him down in the hall afterwards. And I said, hey, man, those opportunity zone things, that sounded like 1031 and private equity got married. And he's like, oh, they had a beautiful baby named Opportunity Zones. And I was like, all right, I'm in. And so we popped up a website and we had 150 inbound leads and $75 million worth of capital looking for deals in 2 weeks. And I was like, well, we're on to something. And literally I've been doing nothing but opportunity zones ever since. And so that's what we do. We help family offices and we help folks who have had sizable capital gains figure out their own opportunity zone strategy. We repurposed that software that we had in order to bring Wall Street level sophistication to Main Street level investors and business owners so that they could take advantage of what I think is the most powerful tax incentive ever legislatively created. And I guess now would be a good time for me to talk about generally what that is, right? Like what is an OZ?
Tell us what an opportunity zone is.
So they were created by the Tax Cut and Jobs Act. In Congress, in 3 pages of legislation, they got the attention of private capital. So they said, listen, if you have a capital gain or you're going to have a capital gain, you execute that capital gain and you get it into a qualified opportunity fund within 180 days. And a qualified opportunity fund is as simple as an LLC tax as a partnership that's specifically organized for purposes of investing into opportunity zones. Then you get to defer that capital gain. So it got private capital's attention that way. Then it had a couple of incentives that if you got off the sidelines and you got into a qualified opportunity fund, that you would reduce your taxes on that original gain. And then the big incentive was that on the third piece, that if you kept your investment inside of a fund for 10 years, that you would ultimately get a step up in basis to fair market value. And for your listeners, they understand that the difference between what your basis is and what your fair market value is when you sell something, that's what you pay in tax. And because of being able to take that basis up to fair market value, and not only eliminates capital gains taxes, but it also eliminates depreciation recapture. So, in those 3 pages of legislation, Congress was able to get private capital's attention, get it off the sidelines, and make it patient. And the reason why they did that is because they wanted to incentivize private investment to go into these historically underinvested areas. So they gave the governors the ability to designate up to 25% of their low income census tracts per the 2010 census as opportunity zones. And so if your opportunity zone fund had 70% or 90% of its assets in these in that are allocated into these zones, then you got all of those benefits. And so as a result, we've seen a massive amount of private capital go into this, $150 billion worth at last count. And we're seeing massive positive effects of this program in these communities that really needed this investment. So much so that we got legislation because the program was supposed to time out in 2026. So in the year that we are in right now, and everybody's taxes became due, and you had to have a gain before now in order to be able to invest into opportunity zones. Through the One Big Beautiful Bill, they extended it, and now it's permanent. And this year, later this year, we will now get the zones redesignated. So the governors will get a chance to redesignate zones. And so we'll have effectively Opportunity Zone 2.0 legislation and regs and zones that will come out later this year.
So,
It's an exciting time.
so what goes in, excuse me, what property is in an opportunity zone? Is it a strip mall, a Starbucks, a fast food restaurant, housing?
All the above. So literally any kind of property, and that's the great thing about OZs, is that number one, it's as of right. So you don't have to ask for permission from anybody. There's not an allocation of a certain amount of tax credits available. So it's not like new market tax credits. It's not like LIHTC. It's not like affordable housing. It's just that if you have a capital gain, you set up a fund, you roll it into that fund inside of 180 days, and then you meet a couple of criteria relative to your investments, you get to get all of the benefits of the program. And so it gives you the flexibility to invest into any of those asset categories that you just described. And also the really cool thing is that you can actually invest into operating businesses that are operating in opportunity zones. So that's one of the things that we've done. We have real estate investments, but we've also made investments into, an operating business that is doing extremely well. And when he goes to exit that in 10 years, we won't pay any capital gains taxes on the growth of our investment from when we made it to when he exits 10 years later.
Okay. And when you say we, that's one of your funds.
That's correct. So, in addition to helping other people set up their funds, we have a fund and we do our own deals out of that fund. We allow for co-investment from other qualified opportunity funds, whether that's institutional ones that are out there that are professionally managed, or the captive ones that we set up for high net worth individuals and for family offices. We also have a bunch of people that had $250,000 worth of capital gain, and now they've leveraged that, and they're in the game, and they're looking for investments, and they're participating in these deals too.
So if I'm understanding it right and get it out to the audience, if I have a big capital gain, I can set up my own opportunity zone investment, or I can go in a fund like the ones you have.
That's right. So you can either do your own, or you can go into professionally managed funds. What our, I guess, kind of carve out niche is that we set up captive funds for people so that way they can put their money into their own fund, and then it gives them time to be able to evaluate and see if they can find their own deal. And worst case scenario is that they just allocate into other people's professionally managed deals. So we've had lots of people who've put 10, 20, $80 million into a fund, and they had a couple of deals that they did on their own. And then they're like, hey, listen, send us good deals that you see coming across your desk because we want to invest into those along with you. And so they've allocated into, to your point, storage facilities, strip malls. We've got a big hotel out in Vegas. We've got folks that are buying, existing that are deals that are just getting built that are kind of credit tenant deals. We got industrial, we got flex industrial. I mean, is kind of a wide array as you can think of. It's more of a question of what can't you do inside of an opportunity zone as opposed to what you can do. And the ones that are not as easy to do are ones that are like highly location based. So if you want to open a Louis Vuitton store, probably not going to be an opportunity zone deal. But or a bank or a hedge fund or something like that is going to be a little bit tougher. But anyhow, pretty much everything else is doable.
These are in the zones that each state sets where they will be, the geographic area where they will be.
That's right. There's 8,753 of them right now. And if you go to our map at ozpros.com/map, you can pull up a map and you can search by address. You can also zoom in on geographical location, and you can figure out where the zones are. So they're in every state and in every territory as well. 98% of the island of Puerto Rico is an opportunity zone because of the hurricanes that happened. They got dispensation to be all of their low-income census tracts. So there's some phenomenal real estate plays that have gotten done in Puerto Rico.
Okay. All right. So somebody puts money into the fund and then they invest in, they put up a strip mall in an opportunity zone. And then what happens?
Yeah. So
It
first
just,
thing is they've got to have a fund, which once again is can be as simple as an LLC tax as a
yeah,
partnership. They got to get the gain into the fund inside of 180 days.
yeah.
Or if it came from a partnership or a K1, I can go back all the way to the previous January 1st. So if somebody sold an asset via a partnership or a K1 on January 2nd of 2025, I've got till September of this year to get them into a fund. And so once they put the money into a fund, they then have to invest 90% of those assets into qualified opportunity zone property. And so one of the ways they can do that is investing directly into a deal. So it either has to be original use, so new construction, or you have to substantially improve it, which is effectively that you have to double the value of the building on whatever it is that you're buying because they don't want
Got it.
people just sitting on stuff. And
Okay.
so when you do that, you get to defer the taxes on the original gain. And as of 2.0 legislation, that's going to be for 5 years. When you go to pay the taxes on that original gain, you're going to get a 10% reduction. Or if you're in a rural qualified opportunity fund, you get a 30% reduction. And then whatever your new investment is, right, after a 10-year hold of your investment into the fund, when you sell anything that's a capital asset, you're eligible to take that step up in basis to fair market value, which is a really powerful tool. And so we've got a lot of folks that are setting up their qualified opportunity funds just to have them as a tool so that they can do transactions inside of these opportunity zones as their fund turns 10 years old.
Okay. That makes sense. And then the benefit to the geographic area is that they get businesses, services they wouldn't have otherwise.
That's right. So they're getting deals that they would have otherwise not gotten. They're getting businesses that are coming in that are creating jobs. All of the construction activity and that kind of thing creates jobs. It raises the standard of living and it raises, just the injection of capital has a massive effect on those local economies. And I mean, we have seen the results of it via the existing opportunity zone legislation. OZ's, the median price for homes has risen. The jobless list rate has gone down, and it has had meaningful impact on poverty in opportunity zones versus their peers that were similarly situated but that did not get designated. So it's working.
Okay. So and this has been successful now for like 7 years, are there maybe the best, I don't know the best way to say this, but are there fights between areas to become an opportunity zone?
Yeah, and so prior to the legislation of the One Big Beautiful Bill last July 4th, there was no way to redesignate a zone. But with that One Big Beautiful Bill, now there's going to be a rolling 10-year designation. So the governors will get a chance to designate new zones every 10 years. Now they can redesignate an old zone if they want to continue to allow investment to go into those areas, or they can select new ones. And
Okay.
so now, right? So as we're coming into July of 2026, that's going to be when the governors will be able to designate new eligible tracks. And so it's, if anybody's interested in getting their track designated, they need to reach out to the governor's office, usually in the Department of Commerce. That's usually who handles this, and start working with them about, hey, what's your criteria? How are you choosing which zones are going to get designated? Because the states that did a good job of this, of getting intentional the first time, like Alabama and Pennsylvania, they've had a massive amount of more investment than the states that didn't get intentional about it, like Massachusetts. Massachusetts just said, hey, we're going to pick the highest poverty zones, regardless of investability, and we're just going to designate those. And they also exempt it out from the state benefit. So if you're in if you're a Massachusetts resident and you do a deal in Massachusetts, you still have to pay state taxes on it. Those states have seen a significantly less amount of capital go into them. And so states that are getting aggressive about, hey, we want to find the low income areas, but that are also have just good kind of base level economics that make them attractive to investors. Those are the ones that are getting massive amounts of capital going into them because they are opportunity zones.
Okay. And uh, let's see. The best way to say this, you take a designated zone. It's a poor area. You put in it's an opportunity zone business. There's investment in businesses, there's investment in housing. Can it grow out of being uh,
Yeah,
a
no, Z,
oppor-
absolutely. And a lot of the ones that were originally designated, because they were designated based on the 2010 census tract, they're not going to be eligible for redesignation in this next
okay?
round because of, well, just because of just regular growth that happened from 2010 to now, and also because of the opportunity zone investments that came into them.
And
Uh,
that should be a goal, shouldn't it, to get them out of that?
Absolutely. Right. To make it so that you're not eligible anymore because now the poverty level has gotten reduced to the amount that it's above the threshold for being able to get designated.
Now, we were talking before we hit record about you also use this as part of estate planning, generational wealth planning, whatever we want to call it.
That's right.
Is that- Yeah. And how does that work?
Well, the really cool thing about OZs, I mean, in addition to all of the things that I've just kind of talked about, is that when you're as it relates to estate planning, your estate steps into the taxpayer's shoes. So if you in your estate, if you're like above the $30 million amount, or you're even remotely approaching it, one of the things that you're concerned about is value increases between when you start doing something and when you potentially die. And because when you die, your estate's going to be valued at fair market value as of that date. And then your estate will have to pay estate taxes if you're above the lifetime exemption amount as of then.
Yeah.
And it's 40% inside of 180 days. And so that's a really big deal. Inside of an opportunity zone deal, your estate steps into your shoes. So if you had invested an original $1 million into a qualified opportunity fund, but let's say that the fair market value of that investment 20 years later is now, it's 10x. It's now 10 to $15 million, right? Instead of that 10 to $15 million amount that's the fair market value, it's just $1 million. It's the original amount that went in that goes against your lifetime exemption amount. And so it's really powerful because it effectively works like a poor man's irrevocable trust for purposes of freezing your estate value. So that's something that's really, really valuable in and of itself. In addition to the fact that not only, so the smart money, like kind of, institutional slash family office money that's looking at transactions now, they're looking at, okay, I have to hold it for 10 years, but I get to hold it for 30 years. And so 30 years worth of tax-free growth is, I mean, seventh wonder of the world is compound interest. The eighth wonder of the world is tax-free compound interest. And you get to do that for 30 years inside of the OZ program. So now it's kind of flipping it on its head to where a lot of family offices were all about that internal rate of return number, which was forcing transactions to happen between every 3 to 5 years. And if for whatever reason you got stuck in a down cycle, right, or in a refinance pickle, like a lot of people had happen with multifamily deals over the last couple of years, you can get, I mean, it can really hammer your internal rate of return and potentially put the deal at risk because of not hitting lender covenants and all that kind of stuff. Inside of this now, people are now looking at saying, okay, I want to invest into deals that have really solid fundamentals. And I want to look at the ability to be able to hold this deal for 30 years because I'm going to be able to exit that thing completely tax-free at the end of 30 years. And so instead of hitting transactional drag of having to turn my money every 3 to 5 years and run the risk associated with going from deal to deal to deal, finding replacement property, all of that kind of stuff, now they're saying, okay, I'm going to hold for 30 and man, I'm just going to let it eat and I'm going to let it eat tax-free. And that's one of the really cool things that we're seeing as a result of this program. It's kind of an unintended consequence, but that is turning people's mindset inside of this kind of generational wealth building concept.
So, an example, if somebody, I work with people selling their business, and if they sell their business and they go, okay, I had this big gain, I'm going to try to way to reduce the taxes on it. Yet I'm at an age where 30 years isn't feasible. I'm not going to be around in 30 years.
Sure.
Do you put it in a trust? Do you just let their kids inherit it? What are some of the mechanisms?
Yeah, so you could absolutely drop it into a trust, right? One of the great things is that your OZ fund will effectively operate like a trust for purposes of what you're trying to accomplish because you're really looking to freeze the value of it for purposes of estate planning, which opportunity zones do. And so inside of that, that can be the way that you can take comfort that, hey, listen, not only is it going to be the original amount that I put in that's going to go against my estate, but now my estate's not going to pay taxes on the growth of this, right, between now and when I die. So that's one of the elements that you could do. You could either contribute the asset into an irrevocable trust prior to selling it, or we can also contribute you can't use a pure irrevocable trust. It's got to be a slant on it, like a slat or a grat or an IDGT or a beat it. One of those kind of, it walks and talks like an irrevocable trust, but it's still on the grantor's social security number. So as long as that's in play, we can use OZs. And the great thing about it is that once again, we're preserving that entity from experiencing tax, drag. And, accordingly, because you're not experiencing tax drag, why go through the difficulty of transactional drag as well? And so we do absolutely use this in the context of estate planning. But, the other key piece is that this is one of the few possibilities for somebody that's post-transaction to be able to come in and get tax benefits associated with moving their money into a deal, especially, because you have control over it. You have the ability to set up your own bank accounts. So you're not writing a check to somebody for a tax, play. You're doing this yourself. You're controlling it. And then there's lots of creative things that we can do with that along the way.
So, what's the minimum that makes it sensible to look at an opportunity zone investment?
Have people ask me that all the time. And the key thing is that it's not about how much gain you have now. It's about how much gain you anticipate in the future. So case in point, that company that I was talking about, that's a solar manufacturing company, they had very little gain on the front end because it was very little money to start the thing up. And so, you could feasibly start the next Facebook for 10 grand. And, you have $10,000 worth of capital gain that you put into it and you hit a moonshot and you're coming out the back end of it at $1 billion, right? And you have zero taxes on that. So it's all about the taxes that you anticipate in the future. On real estate stuff, what we roughly say is that if you're doing above like $250,000 deal, certainly a $500,000 deal. $500,000 deal, it's a non-starter. Between that 250 and 500, it depends on who you have as your experts to help you along the way and how much they're charging you because you're going to have to maintain this thing for 10 years. But let's just say that your transactional costs of that were like $50,000. Well, then it's really easy to divide to say, okay, what do my tax savings need to be in order to justify that 50 grand that I spent along the way? And roughly, if somebody's doing a $500,000 deal and it's going to at least double, right? They're going to be paying, roughly $100,000 in taxes on that. So if you're doing a $500,000 deal or more, and it's in an opportunity zone, or you have the ability to put it into an opportunity zone, you're crazy not to.
Okay. Now, what happens if somebody wants to, or shall we even has to, get that money out before 10 years?
Yeah, they just pay the taxes at that time.
Okay.
That's great. I mean, the other thing is that there's lots of flexibility about tapping the cash along the way. So, we've got people that they put $10 million into a fund and they had the money in, that they got invested into different deals. And then they were able to go and refinance it. So there's a 2-year lockout on a cash out refinance. But after that 2 years, you can take out every cent of cash out of that a lender will give you, against it. And so if you're doing deals where you're significantly increasing the value of your deals to where you can then refinance, you could take that cash and put it into whatever you want to.
Okay. Well, Ashley, the time has flown by. Before we get to any final thoughts, what do you like to do when you're not an evangelist for opportunity zones?
I'm a big hunter. I don't know if you can see my bobblehead back here, but it's it's me with standing over a moose with my rifle. I have yet to go moose hunting, but that's certainly one of the things I'd love to do. And it's funny is that that's actually one of our specialties is that we show people how to, do hunting operations and to do other kind of hunting investments via opportunity zones and how to get tax benefits out of them. And so I'm able to actually kind of twine the two, but that's my passion. I love to hunt.
Okay. So we've covered a lot, but are there any final tips or strategies, insights you'd like to share that we haven't covered yet?
So a lot of times people there's this kind of perception that, why should I invest in 2026? I'm just going to wait till 2027. And there's a unique window and a closing window from 1.0 to be able to get upwards of a 50% reduction in taxes. So if somebody had a business that transacted last year or they anticipate transacting this year, we can show them how they can, save 50% on that tax bill when they go to pay it in 2027. That's the first thing. Second thing is that people are like, when should I set up my OZ fund? And I like to use the little Chinese proverb. When was the best time to have planted a tree? 30 years ago. When's the second best time? Today. When was the best time to have set up your opportunity fund? 2018. When's the second best time? Right now. Because it's all about starting that 10-year clock. Because after that 10-year clock hits, there's massive things that you can do with an aged opportunity fund. And that's what we specialize in doing. We help people to set them up. We help people keep them compliant and navigate through our mastermind. It's a weekly call with me that people get to ask questions. And it's actually become a really cool community where folks are doing deals and all that other kind of stuff. So I love our community. I love OZs. And I'd love to help people get their opportunity zone tree planted.
I got a final question, and I want you to share how people can get hold of you, and we'll put it in the show notes also.
Yeah, so I've actually got a special deal going for anybody that is interested in kind of starting their opportunity zone journey. If they go to ozpros.com/podcast, and then inside of the show notes, there's actually a link for your listeners, and we've got deals. We've got discounts on that mastermind I was talking about. First month's on me for your listeners. I've also got a free masterclass, and then we've got strategy calls. If somebody actually just wants to get on the call with us, on a phone call with us, we're happy to do that. And then if they just are interested in learning more about OZs, they can go to YouTube/OZPros, and we got a ton of educational videos on there as well.
Okay. So we've talked a lot about capital gains. So my final question that came to me, and then we'll wrap up, is Does it have to be a capital gain? If somebody said, I have $1 million and I want to put it into an opportunity zone, does it make sense to do that without it being a capital gain situation?
Unfortunately, it has to be a capital gain in
Okay.
order to get the benefit.
All right.
Now, we can use investments, qualified opportunity zone investments, and different strategies that we have in order to mitigate ordinary income, with a little bit of complexity associated with that. But unfortunately, you can't start your fund with it has to be a capital gain. Now,
Okay.
it doesn't have to be all capital gain. So you can put 10% of whatever it is in capital gain, and then the rest could be after tax money.
Oh, okay. There has to be a capital gain as part of it.
That's right. But it doesn't have to be all capital gain.
Okay. All right. So that's capital gain is the start, like the starter fuel, and then you can add on to it with.
That's right. And then you can also lever up with bank financing or with other lenders and investors and that kind of thing too.
Okay. Great. Well, look, this has been a fascinating discussion. As I said a few minutes ago, the time has flown by. I'm with Ashley Tison with OZ Pros, and it's O, the letter OZPROS.com. And it's been a real pleasure. I've known about opportunity zones, but I learned a lot more today than what I knew before. So I thank you for being on the Getting the Deal Done podcast.
Well, John, thanks for having me as a guest. Looking forward to getting your fund started so that we can get you
Okay.
taking advantage of the most powerful tax incentive ever created.
All right. Okay. All the best and a great 2026.
Yep, to you as well. Cheers.